Um, Welcome, Mr. Ghosh, to the webinar series. On behalf of the Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology, Sister Nivedita University, I am welcoming you in this webinar. I hope that it will be a very nice session and your talk will enlighten us a lot. So, to the participant, I am introducing Mr. Gaurav Ghosh. He is the Mr. Gaurav Ghosh. He is the product manager of Mark Life Sciences Private Limited. Today, he is going to talk about the science behind the pure water. As you all know, that water it's a synonym of life, right? Without water, nothing can exist in the world. No life can exist. So, water is a very important component of life and the all living system. So, the pure water, the purification of water is also a very important process in our society. So, Mr. Gaurav Ghosh is going to talk about today how the water purity can be measured and how the water purification can be done. So, everything, all the sciences behind the pure water, he is going to talk about, and we are going to learn, we are going to listen to him. So, I'm inviting once again Mr. Gaurav Ghosh to the session, and the screen is yours. As I'm telling to everyone that we cannot say that the stage is yours as it's a virtual platform. So, I must say that the screen is yours, sir. So, just have your talk, please, Mr. Ghosh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all the participants, first of all, and thank you specifically for the Sister Nivedita University for hosting such a kind of conference, which is definitely going to help the students as well as the future researcher going forward. So I just like to take you some of the brief about the science behind water, because Sir has already set the tone like why the water is important. So I'll just take you through why water is so much important for our regular life, as well as specifically since we are working in the lab. So how actually we can say this is very much important, and if we are not taking care of our water properly, what are the subsequent consequences going forward in the future, specifically whenever we are working in the laboratory. So my topic of discussion for today is science behind pure water. So here I just put a mask because we all are going through a very different situation. So now this is something which become a new normal of our life, because I hardly see the kind of webinar and a lot of web conference was happening earlier days before this COVID. So the before COVID and after COVID, we can really see a huge transition. So in other way to take it in a positive way, of course, we know that the COVID is impacting us in various different factors. So somehow our movement is restricted, and a lot of our nearer one and dearer one is also getting affected because of the COVID. And none of us is actually looking for it. We don't want to get rid of those particular situations. But we also are getting a very good learning lesson from the COVID. So why it is the learning lesson? So just very nice example I could quote it. So earlier days, hardly if you'll ask any one of us, we were very much acquainted with any kind of digital platform itself. So now we are already very well equipped with that, and already the system Nivedita University is doing a fantastic job in terms of hosting such a kind of big webinar where all the students can directly participate. But just looking at the few days back, so if they would have also even hosted, the kind of participation, the kind of response they would have get it, probably not the way where we are getting it in digitally. So now directly we are operating from home majorly, and sometimes we are going to our offices for certain very critical work. It's only a digital medium which can actually help us to learn more. So this is a very basic learning for us, and which is definitely going to take us much more better future way. So in this note, so by saying that, I like to introduce myself. So once again, Sir has given the input about me, what I am doing. So currently I'm working with Merck, so as a product manager for our Miliq division. So Miliq is basically the pioneer in terms of this water purification solution perspective. And in my previous background, so I did my MSc in biotechnology, and also I was in research for few years. So after that, I moved to corporate, and now I am handling the entire portfolio for this water purification chain. If you have any question related to the water, please feel free to post it in the chat box. I'll be happy to help you specifically for that. So who we are, just a very small and quick introduction about our company. We are a company named Merck. So we are a 350 years old company, and we believe the science is very much colorful and the vibrant. So earlier days we used to talk always the science in a very black and white manner. But if you really look at science was colorful. Probably nowadays every day we are discovering this color of the science much more better way. And during our 350 of years of the journey, so we have understood that particular thing in a much more deeper aspect. So now we have 200 millions of the product to offer to all the kind of scientific laboratories wherever they are doing the research, or they are working on these certain pharmaceuticals, or they are working on some medical purposes. We have completely end-to-end solutions, and we also have various kind of division inside our Merck. So we have the pharmaceutical division, and personally from where I belongs from, we have the life science division. I am belonging from this life science division, and also we have some performance material division. If you talk about the performance materials, the very important thing over here, so nowadays we all are using this LCD and LED display, and all how it is getting manufactured, it's all getting manufactured by liquid crystals. So it's very much integral part of all kind of LED and LCD manufacturing process. And in Merck, we are very much pioneer in that segment as well. And MilliQ as a lab water solution, we are a part of this Merck Life Sciences division, and we cater to all kind of industries. So wherever there is a need of water, our MilliQ presence is there. It starts from these various research institutes, various kind of academic institute, food and beverage, automobile, pharmaceutical, diagnostic, you name any, we have the very good presence over there. So this is how this MilliQ as a division is our briefing is all about. So let's come to today's topic of discussion. So why purified water? So if we talk about the water, so the first thing is come to our mind, which is nothing but drinking water. And it's quite obvious because this is something which gives us the life. And without a good quality of the drinking water, definitely we can come across with a lot of waterborne diseases. And since all of you are very much passionate about microbiology, I'm sure that you must be knowing what are the waterborne contaminants are already there in specifically which comes from this drinking water. And that's why we need the certain level of purification while drinking. Sometimes in domestic or drinking purposes, we majorly use this RO. Earlier, we were using some of the filter, followed by UV has come to the picture. Now it's RO, UV, UF, even sometimes the TDS control. So if you talk about the TDS control, why we are talking about this TDS control? So TDS stands for total dissolved solids, which also majorly detects whatever the essential ions is required for our body that has to be very much present in our drinking water. Because without having a good quality of the drinking water, if our drinking water does not contain good amount of salts, like specifically sodium and all those things, which is very much essential for our body, definitely this is something which is going to create a lot of problem associated with us going forward in future. So until unless we do have a proper concentration of this TDS, so definitely it's a point of concern. You may read a lot of papers, it's every day is coming to the news. RO drinking water is not very good. It's not very healthy. Over the period of usage, it may create a lot of problem associated with our body. But now coming to the laboratory water perspective, so do we need this drinking water in our laboratory? Can we use it? So probably not, because here we are working on a very in vitro condition, and we need all kind of contamination present in the water should be absolutely free. And we want the pH which should be absolutely 7. Anything deviation from the pH 7, probably it's not a very acceptable limit. So if it is pH 7, so that means there is a no question of presence of any kind of minerals, because minerals is something which is nothing but ions in nature that may create the problem. Now the comes thing, why do we need the good water in the laboratory? Because water is the most critical reagent in the laboratory. The moment itself we talk about water is the most critical reagent, very often whenever we work in the laboratory, so majority of the places we forget water as a reagent. We consider water as a water only. It's we use it for only for the some of the dissolution, sometimes for making some of the media, some of the buffer and all those things. But we forget one very critical factor. If we will not consider water as a critical reagent, definitely this is something may create a lot of problem in our experiment. So going forward, my request to all of you, please consider water as a critical reagent. So what are the things? Let's have a quick briefing about what are the water chemistry behind it, because we know this water, since we are talking about this water as a reagent, so definitely it's very much important for us to understand what is the chemistry behind water. So the chemistry starts from the nature. So once again, I'm telling you, science is very much colorful. It's depending upon what is the source of water, the water chemistry or the contamination profile of water also varies. We all know this water means H plus equals to OH minus, which is H2O. But water also contains some of the contamination along with it. And that's the reason all kind of water purification technology exists, so that we can take care of all those contamination and get various kind of purity of water based on our various application. From where the contamination comes, that it comes from the source of the water. Majorly water are having two different sources. One is groundwater, another one is surface water. Groundwater is typically, you can consider the water which we majorly draw it from the borewell and all those things, that is getting considered as a groundwater. And another one is called as a surface water. So wherever the water is exposed to the nature, like pond water, river water, those are the things are called as a surface water. It's depending upon its nature, its contamination profile also varies. Groundwater, typically the ionic level is high, whereas in the surface water, probably not that level of ionic presence, but definitely we can expect very good presence of the particulate load and also various kind of presence of bacteria or the volatile organics. And we don't want any of the contamination to be present in our water whenever we are working in the laboratory, because we need absolute pure grade of water for the laboratory application. So these are the 5 major contamination of water. This starts from the salts, which also you can talk it in terms of these ions. Then it's come also there is some thing called organics. So organics is definitely going to create or may create a lot of problem in our experiment. Another one is the particle, and the microorganisms is something which we all know it is something may create a lot of problem in our experiment. Whenever we are working on the microbiology, if we are making some of the media preparation and buffer preparation, if our water itself contains some of the microorganisms, that may further create some of the problem. And the dissolved gases are also a problem. From where those things usually comes from, if we talk about any of the salts, I guess majorly this cation and anion, this ion can be present in any of the form. And that's why you need certain level of the filtration so that you can remove all kind of ionic contamination and get very good grade of water quality. Similar thing for the organics. So it's majorly come from various kinds of natural sources, even for the artificial sources. Natural sources definitely starting from the leaf, which contains this chlorophyll. And also if you look at the artificial sources, a lot of industrial waste is keep on directly diverting to our river. And that's why even from the government side, they are taking certain initiatives how they can restrict those things and minimize the contamination of in Ganga specifically. So that's why, like you all we know, The Clean Ganga, there is a big project is going on from the government of India perspective. And what are those contamination exactly? So this is majorly in terms of this organics. It could be various other things. And this volatile organics also very much present in the air. So this is also may create a lot of problem in our water. And similar thing, the particle which starts from the dust particle, mud particle, if anything present. So this is something is not at all we are exactly looking whenever we are working on any kind of application in the laboratory. So if we don't take care of those things, inclusive of the bacteria, which is one of the major factor for us, it may create a lot of problem in our experiment. So this is how the entire contamination. So just to summarize once again, water is having the majorly 5 contamination. It starts with the ions, organics, particles, bacteria, and gases. These are the 5 major contamination for the water. And that's why all the kind of water purification technology exists. Now let's come to what will be the possible impact if the water contains certain level of contamination. So the first things starts from repetition of the experiment. Here, very critical thing is that since water is a critical reagent and sometimes we don't consider water as a critical reagent, most of the time what happens whenever some problem will arise, will not be in a very healthy situation to understand whether the problem is coming from this water or the problem is coming from some other sources. So then we will be keep on repeating this experiment and maybe sometime anticipating the problem is not coming from the water, problem is coming from some other thing like reagents or some of the samples, anything it may be. So repetition is always a challenge. One side, you will be losing your healthy time while doing the repetition of your work. You will not be getting the good result even if you will repeat it, and at the end of the day probably your professor will question you what are you exactly doing. So you can definitely report to him or her, so sir I am keep on repeating the results but I am not keep on repeating this experiment but I am not getting a good results. So at the end of the day, results perspective, it's not. This is one. The next thing, it may damage your instrument. Since you are working on some of the sophisticated laboratories, some of the advanced level of application, so your instrument is also very costly. Just remember one thing, since all of you are already pursuing certain level of education, definitely you will be having a very big interest for moving to the college and during your college time for doing some level of your research for your own interest. If you damage the instrument, all the instrument cost very highly for any of the university. To further procure that instrument itself is a challenge because it's also linked with a lot of fundings, lot of other factors, and not only to that, once again you will be losing your time. Time is the biggest essence for today's situation, and you will be losing your samples as well. In today, we are working on this microliter or nanoliter of the sample size. If you lose that sample, what will be the consequences? Here, I'll just like to highlight one thing. Just imagine, since whomsoever is currently doing this COVID testing and all those things, if you are collecting the samples from one of the patient and diagnosing whether this patient is COVID positive or negative, if you lose that particular samples, can you go and further ask that patient, I want to take once again the your samples? So patient will not allow you. It is question of your credibility. Even if you are working in the research, it's a question of your research also. Sometimes you will not be in a position to get a very good healthy amount of the sample, which may also will be a biggest problem for you once again. And even if sometimes you will be getting some results, but it will not be well assured whatever the results you are getting, that is you are getting exactly right. So this is something is a major problem which may comes from the water. So we understand by that time what are the various contamination of water and what are the possible consequences of water. It may holds good for all kind of application. If you are working on this microbiology, so this is just an example in terms of the microbiology. So this is some plate we can see. So it's clearly seen lot of contamination is there, and this is typically came from the water, whatever you use while doing the media preparation, also while diluting your samples. But ideal scenario, you should get a good specific thing where the colonies are very clear. You can easily count how many content of the bacteria is present in the specific samples. So none of us is actually looking for the result which is of this similar kind. So all of us will be looking for a very clean result. So where we can actually conclude whether this is positive, negative, false positive, false negative, anything, whatever we based on our experiment. This is a only small example in terms of whenever you are working on the microbiology. Similar thing, the molecular biology, molecular diagnosis is something was the major area of work for today. Even for this analytical application, or you name any of the application, all those places there will be a very different problem you may get it, and that all may come from the water. So if we are not actually taking care of our water quality in day-to-day basis, if we are not really monitoring it, this may create a lot of challenges. And for that, we need the proper filtration and the proper purification system in place, which will be giving us the complete visibility. And also we can understand what is the water quality we are getting. So whether it is consistent or it is giving some of the level of the fluctuation, because it does not mean any of the filtration if, or something, any of the purification system, if you put it in place today and it will work exactly the same without doing any kind of maintenance, maybe down the line 10 years there may be the chances of the fluctuation. It's almost like a car. So until unless we will not maintain our car, so this is car is not going to give us in similar output whatever it was giving us at the time of purchase. So same thing hold good for any of the systems. So it starts from this water purification system, any analytical experiment, instrument, any biological instrument, all the places, the maintenance is something which is extremely required, and we have to have the proper system in place which can actually ensure us whatever water we are getting, so that water quality is consistent. And we should be having the real time monitoring of the quality, which can actually help us to understand if is there any fluctuation in terms of water. If it is so, we should be in a position to understand and monitor that thing as well. So these are the various kind of water purification technology exist in the world. So which starts from the distillation. We have various kind of technologies called deionization, electrodeionization, reverse osmosis, various kind of membrane filtration, ultrafiltration, activated carbon, ultraviolet. All those things are having a various different kind of mode of action, and it takes care of only certain level of the contamination, because water itself is a very vast subject. 75% of our body is full of water, 75% of our world is full of water, and similarly water also have huge level of the contamination. So let's come from the first level of the technologies. I'm sure that all of you are very well familiar with the distillation system. Even for the double distillation system, we heat it and condensed it, and finally, whatever water we are getting it, so that is comparatively the pure grade of water, which we very frequently use it for various kind of laboratory application. It's not from the college times, even from the school times. All the school, whenever we are doing the biological work, chemical works, we can definitely see lot of kind of distillation system is predominantly getting used. But over the period of time, so as a purification system, so we also understand it was having certain level of the challenges. Yes, we do use it, but still it is having certain level of challenges. Let me take you through what are the various challenges what we are usually facing from the distillation system, which starts from the quality challenges. It does not remove all kind of ions. does not remove all the level of organics. It does not remove all the bacteria. Yes, very good amount of bacteria it can be removed, but some of the bacteria, specifically this bacterial byproduct like endotoxin, even if it can be present at the point of dispensing whatever we are drawing from the distilled water. And the biggest challenges over there was monitoring purpose. So there is no inbuilt monitoring system is there in place which actually ensure us whatever water we are getting at the date of the installation and down the line 3 or 4 years it is giving us the exact water quality. So quality perspective, of course, it's a challenge because certain level of work we can definitely take it, still work it and believe it directly on the distillation. But in today's situation, we are also working on a lot of sophisticated instruments. It starts from the PCR, HPLC, and various kind of microbiological experiment also. So those places definitely this is something which is creating the problem. Sometimes we are in a position to identify it. Sometimes we are not in a position to identify the problem at all, whether it is coming from the water or it is coming from somewhere else. Scaling in terms of the maintenance, it's always being a challenge. Why it is a challenge? Because of the continuous heating and since our water content a lot of other factors also, it's not only the specific ion like sodium, calcium. So because of the over the period of usage, so it forms certain level of scaling. So while scaling, we need a very strong acid to use it for removal of those things. Similar to that fashion, it consumes huge level of energy. So since majorly our institutes is paying the bill, so we may not be so much bothered about how much energy consumption is there, but it's consume a very high level of electricity. And today, as a responsible citizen of India, it is also a part of our duty to save the energy. So whenever you'll be working on any of the experiment, it's not specific to water purification system, you have to remember certain very important thing in mind so that you can save certain thing and you can make the world much more sustainable. So one in terms of savings of water, savings of electricity, because that are the two very critical factors. Until unless we are not going to do that, probably we cannot get a very good or healthy future for tomorrow. So it's really a time for all of us to shift to the clean and green technology and make the world much more cleaner and greener. Since I'm talking about the clean and green technology, how we can actually shift it and what are the technologies there with us. Start from RO. Yes, RO is having certain level of the challenges because we know RO is also waste certain level of water. I'm sure all of you are very much familiar with the principles of RO. It's majorly the passing from the high density to low density through a semi-permeable membrane. So here we can say it's a bad contaminated water, and these places we are getting the pure water, and all those contamination is getting stagnated here in this membrane. So now the question comes, this RO and the drinking water RO, is it same? No, it's not same. The principle of working behind it, it's same. But whatever the RO we require in the laboratory, that cutoff is much more less, rather I'll say much more higher as compared to any of the drinking water RO. Drinking water RO typically we use maybe around zero point 0.1 micron or 0.01 micron maximum. But in the case of the laboratory, here the cutoff is something in a molecular weight basis cutoff, which is having much more better efficiency. So this RO itself is having a certain level of capacity so that it can alone can remove more than 95% of ions, organics, particle, and bacteria. Just imagine, we need the minerals to be present in our drinking water. So definitely this RO is not exactly suitable for the drinking water. Whatever the output will come, it will not be having much of the minerals to be present. But we need much more better capacity so that very initial level we can take care of very good level of the contamination whenever we are working on the laboratory for the water purification purposes. Similarly, there are a lot of specialized ion exchange resins which allow us to remove various kind of ions, which starts from this anion and cation. So also we use various kind of mixed bed ion exchange resins while doing various kind of filtration, uh, specifically for the removal of ions. Electrodeionization is one of the very unique technology which is already there in the market for the ages. So all the kind of water purification vendors majorly prefer to use this electrodeionization module. It is having a very unique principle, because if you look at this ion exchange resins over the period of time, because of the continuous usage, you have to treat these ion exchange resins and activate these ion exchange resins by using certain level of chemicals. So until unless you will not activate it over the period of time, it will not work. This electrodeionization technology, which ensures you need not to work and put anything separately which is external. For example, you need not to treat those ion exchange resins externally by using any of the chemicals or any of the acids, and you need not to change these ion exchange beads also after a certain period of time. So it works in the principle there is one anode and one cathode, and alternatively place anion permeable membrane and the cation permeable membrane. So whatever water is coming over in the first, second compartment and the fourth compartment, you can clearly see all the anion is passing through the first compartment and the cation is passing through the third compartment. Same thing is happening in both these compartments, second compartment and the fifth compartment. So final water, whatever you are getting as the product water, it is majorly free from ionic contamination. So this is an extremely strong tool so that we can actually take care of various kind of ions. And activated carbon is very unique in design and unique in terms of the bits, which is there are also various kind of categories are there. Natural activated carbon, which majorly the charcoal we can say, and the synthetic activated carbon. Why it is getting used? It is getting used because for the removal of the chlorine and organics from the water, because the organics is a major problem and chlorine is nothing but ionic in nature. Similarly to that fashion, there are the UVs which is available in the market, majorly for 254 nanometer UV which is getting used for removal of bacteria. What it happens whenever this bacteria will get exposed to this 254 nanometer UV, it will form the pyrimidine dimer and bacteria will stop replicating. And there are also certain level of UVs which is currently very much getting used for removal of organics. Now you can definitely ask me how UV will remove organics. No, it is not directly going to remove the organics. But whenever UV will expose to the organic molecule, so organic molecule will break down to carbon dioxide and water. So there will not be any more presence of the organic molecule. We tell it as a photo-oxidation. So there are specific nanometer like 172 to 185 nanometer is getting used for the organic removal purpose. And the filtration is the main thing which actually shifted us the completely the cleaner and greener environment. There is a huge set of filtration is available in the world, which starts from the depth filter. So depth filter majorly taking care of various kind of particulate load at the very preliminary stage, and the screen filter which is having the very defined pore size. Like here, a lot of vendors they use 0.22 micron filter at the point of dispensing. Whenever you are collecting the water, this 0.22 micron is getting used so that the final water, whatever you are getting, it is free from various kind of bacteria. So 0.22 micron is something it's very well recommended worldwide for removal for this bacteria purpose. So if you go to any of the pharmaceutical organization, any of the companies, so whomsoever is working on this microbiology, so they all are very much familiar with this term 0.22 micron filter. So it's a screen filter basically. And there are another specific filter which is called ultrafiltration. This ultrafiltration removes various nucleus as well as the endotoxin. If your working area is cell culture, sometime if your working area is various kind of PCR or RT-PCR, this ultrafiltration is something which is recommended to use. So those filter is very much standardized globally, which is also having the various kind of global validation specific data, which actually ensures those filter will take care of very good number of contaminations. So since already I told you about various kind of clean and greener technologies, so that we can take care of various kind of water contamination thing. But water itself is a very vast thing. None of the single technology can take care of all kind of contamination. So we need the combination of the technologies. So all the technologies is having some of is good pros as well as the cons. For example, ion exchange resins can take care of only ions. But what about the organs? What about the bacteria? It may further create the problem in your experiment. So that's the reason you need the combination of the technologies. So there are various kind of combination is available like that. So for example, pre-treatment pack, which initially take care of from tap water, if you put this pre-treatment pack, which majorly to take care of various kind of particles and various kind of contamination which is coming from the water, followed by RO, which take care of 95% of the contamination, but less rest of the 5% is very good enough to create any of the problem in your experiment. And we need the absolute pure grade of water. We need the pH 7. So 5% is very much important over there. Electrodeionization module, 254 nanometer UV. Finally, up to here, you will get certain level of the purity, but it is not exactly the pH 7. You need further level of polishing. So you need the combination of activated carbon and ion exchange resin and photo-oxidation UV lamp, majorly for the photo-oxidation of the organic molecule, and the final water, whatever you will be getting, that is pH 7, and also we call it as a pure grade of ultra pure grade of water. Now, since I'm talking about something called pure grade of water, ultra pure grade of water, what is it all about? So it's come from various kind of global standards. So if you look at any of the global standards, so it also clearly defines waters are majorly of three types: type 3, type 2, and type 1. Type 3 water is something which we call it as a pure grade of water, which we can use it for any kind of basic laboratory purpose, like for rinsing, washing, and all those purposes. This is something can be used. Followed by type 2 grade of water, which can be used for various kind of comparatively critical application, which is also called pure grade of water for media preparation, buffer preparation, washing purposes as well. And next in ultra pure grade of water and reagent grade of water. Wherever you have any criticality application like PCR, RT-PCR, HPLC, LCMS, or anything, any sophisticated or sensitive application, you need the ultra pure grade of water for that. So that's how this is very clearly defined as per various global standards. Here I'm just giving two examples. One is ASTM, which is called American Society for Testing Materials. So they clearly define what should be the ideal water quality for type 1, similarly for type 2, and Pharmacopoeia also similarly given the guideline. There are also guidelines from ISO. So all has defined what should be the ideal water quality for type 1, type 2, and type 3 grade of water. And depending upon your experiment, criticality or sensitivity of your experiment, you can decide which water will be suitable for your application. So as a MilliQ, we provide the entire range of solution for this. So please let us know. And this is how the specification looks like. Ions is 18.2 mega ohm centimeter. So this is something also called pH is exactly 7. So there are some of the theoretical algorithm is there, which is clearly said 18.2 mega ohm resistivity of the ionic contamination is equal to 1 by 18.2, which is 0.055 microsiemens per centimeter, is equal to pH 7. That means H plus equals to OH minus. There is no more presence of any kind of ionic contamination. But organics, we also define in terms of the ppb, sometimes ppm level. So ppb level talks about less than 2 microgram per liter. So this is how it is. Particulate level less than 1. Bacteria level less than 0.0 CFU per ml. So here you can say in other way 10 CFU per liter. And the pyrogen level is less than 0.001 endotoxin unit per ml. So this is how the entire specification looks like. So that's all from my side. So last but not the least, I'll say please consider water as a critical reagent, because since already you have started working in the laboratories or you are planning to work in the laboratories, so until unless you will not take care of this water part, definitely going forward you may see a lot of challenges in your experiment, and majority of the time you will not be in a position to understand whether the problem is coming from the water or somewhere else. So here I like to conclude my session over here. Firstly, my big thanks to all the participants, and the big thanks to the SNU for the encouraging the students, specifically for kind of knowledge sharing initiative what you have taken. It's really very good. So definitely going forward, we can see a lot of good future scientists is coming up, who will be benefited out of your initiatives, definitely. So once again, thanks to all the faculty members from this SNU, and thanks to all the joinees. If you have any question, you can post it in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer to your queries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ghosh. It is a immense pleasure for all of us to have such a nice talk. I mean, it's a very good thing. We have come to know so many things about the water in general. In the laboratory, we used to do is that we just take the water and we pour it. But what is actually behind what the, I mean, effort behind that pure water you people are doing, that we have come to know today, that how much, I mean, it is difficult to make a water pure. We actually don't care about that. We just take the water and we make the media. My students are, I mean, wasting the pure water. But after this talk, I think my dear students can get to know, can understand that how important it is, how, I mean, effort is needed to make a water pure. So water purification is a very important part of the microbiology, and I would like to request all of my participants and my dear students not to waste water in laboratory. Okay, because see, so many people are working so hard to make the water pure for us only. So, and
Raju sir,
yes, 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 Mrs. Sir,
there
is
are
there
some
any question?
questions. There are some
Yes,
questions
go
in
ahead.
the
Yes,
YouTube also.
yes.
Question is from Prem Khernath. The question is, sir, what are pyrogens?
Okay, so pyrogens is something which is once this bacteria will get dead, so it also produce some of the endotoxins. So this is majorly you can call it as a pyrogen. If you are working on the cell culture specifically, so pyrogen is something which can also create some of the problem in your cell line growth. For example, it will actually stop cell to further grow. So this is how the pyrogen can be impacted in your experiment. Hope I could have got to clarify your doubts.
Okay, sir, thank you. We have another question. It is also from Prem Khernath. Sir, nowadays water purifiers come up with additional minerals added by machine. So does
Yes.
it fulfill our need?
Very good question. So thank you, the person who has asked the question. So here the thing is that yes, it's not always fulfilling our need. The purpose behind it, it always talks about TDS control. If you will put it by default as a TDS control, sometime you can see the equal changes is happening in your drinking water. So if you can really feel some of the changes in the drinking water taste, so definitely some of the problem is happening. So if you will continuously monitoring that particular factor, so it will be fulfilling your need up to certain extent. But without the monitoring, if you just keep it and you are assuming the fact you are drinking this RO water which is having the TDS control, so probably it is not going to suffice your need. So moment itself you will understand there is some deviation in terms of the taste. Please adjust it or call the vendor for adjusting it. So there is a real good concern over there.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So there is another question from Shudipto Chaki. The
Yeah.
question is it commercially available drinking water free from all bacteria or microscopic living organisms?
Okay, good question. It is majorly free from the bacteria, or I would rather say majorly free from any of the bacteria which may create the problem in our body, but it's not 100% free from the bacteria. So this only ensure it is free from maybe like coliform or some of the specific thing which is creating some problem in our body. Once again, it's depend upon the vendor and depend upon the kind of assurance they are giving. So in today's scenario, maybe if we are driving somewhere in a highway road, we may get lot of new drinking water manufacturer who is putting this mineral water, but I'm not very sure how much actually the purification they are doing. But yes, some good vendor they really do take care of it, but only up to the things which create direct problem to our body. But if we are talking about something in the laboratory perspective, we don't need any of the contamination.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. There are no more questions in the chat box. So
Okay.
over to you, Rajat sir.
Okay, thanks, Professor Thakur Chaudhary, for moderating the questions. And we are almost at the end of our session, today's session. This is the fourth day of our online program. We have only one day left, that is tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last day of our online program. It is a very good experience for me. I hope all of you, whoever are joining with us, you are also sharing the same experience with me. Tomorrow again we will meet at the same time. The links of the meeting will be sent tomorrow tonight to all of you. And once again, I must thank to Professor Atri Ghosh and Mr. Gaurav Ghosh for giving their time for their lecture and this wonderful talk. So thank you both once again. And thanks to my dear participants also for being with us for a long time. And hope to see you tomorrow again at the last day of our online program. So bye for now and see you tomorrow again. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thanks all of you.
Yes.